Welcome once again to another Monday night to an Imperfect Union, brought to you by the political consciousness of West Coast Steeler fan. Let's get all our commercials out of the way. If you would like, you can subscribe and donate to our program using the Cash App uh, $ J.E. King the Third. You can find us on Facebook as well as YouTube every Monday evening. Um, now that all that's out of the way, once again, we come with two terrible tragedies. We have the police shooting of a young man in Akron, Ohio, which causes nights of unrest. But then, in direct competition with this, we have the usual senseless shooting at the funeral of this young man that tragically kills a 4-year-old niece, also related to the young man's family. Now, in this program and many programs that I have been on up until now, and even those that I will appear on after this, I will still be talking about police reform. Now, let's talk about the other part of this senseless tragedy before getting back into police reform and what happened with this young man. Now, there's no way to condone the killing of a child. Be it by their parent, something like this, a senseless drive-by, or any other type of means. Now, I'm not going to get into the pro-life and all that. We'll talk about those things later when we have some other people on the show along with me. But I've always been uncomfortable with the term black on black crime. And I've often used the term poor on poor crime. And I'll still use that term. But let's get back to the 4-year-old girl in this senseless tragedy. Okay. We have talked on this program and other programs about how to stop the violence within our neighborhood. Mr. Scott and others in Minneapolis have talked about the enormous amount of gunshots and violence within our own neighborhoods. But I'm pretty sure that statistics will bear me out. Percentage-wise, a poor white neighborhood, a poor Asian neighborhood, a poor African neighborhood, any neighborhood where you find poverty and those with less than, you're going to find a high rate of crime. Be it this country, be it India, Africa, Australia, poverty breeds crime. Okay? That's been established for decades. Now, I would be naive to say that there is not a higher percentage within the black neighborhood. And I am going to place the blame for this in some very specific areas. And the first area, of course, that I'm going to blame is no self respect. And the reason why I'm going to start there first is because this is something that you're usually doing, or the activity that you're engaged in is for you to show your bravado, show your particular, who is this? As I was saying, usually the person that's doing this or that's employed to do this, it's something for their status or to rise in status among that group or his peers. And when your self-respect depends upon the opinion of others, you should take a reassessment of your value judgment. Whose opinion or who do you have to respect or want the respect of more than that person that you see in the mirror? All of this stuff to impress other people, you're the one that has to put your head down on the pillow at night, and you're the one that has to live with those decisions. And what if those people whose people you have decided to curry favor with, what happens when those people are no longer available? The second thing that let's talk about guns in our neighborhood and why they are so readily available. Do you think that that's a coincidence? And as I've said many times before, I think I could go into any city in major city in the United States and probably have a firearm within the first hour to 45 minutes of the time that I got there. Again, do you think that that's a coincidence? I would venture to say uh, that anyone that is in one of the right wing groups would also be able to obtain a firearm. And as we have pointed out, we have more illegal firearms in this country than we have the actual population. To go back to the other, the third thing that I blame these things on is the environment in which you operate. And I'm going to make some hard analogies here because it's like an animal that lives in a jungle. There are some predators on the top end. Then there are some predators that are still predators, but they're on the bottom end. Jackals and such. But on the top end, And here I'm talking about your lions, uh, possibly the leaders of the herds of wildebeest, or anyway, as I was saying, the top predators on here. I see Dr. Casey's here, looking bright as ever. Uh, 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 I don't know. Maybe I should do my Stephen A. impression today. I saw how enthused he was over Molly's yellow dress.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
How you been doing?
I've been doing fine. How was your holiday?
It was what holiday?
See, there you go now.
You know, I don't really get into federally recognized holidays as much. Um, I normally barbecue and cook and do all those things on my own. Um, on a humbug, like that's just who I am. So yeah, I blew right past me.
Uh, so you didn't put on that pot of chitlins, or
First off, who eats chitlins? Nobody. Nobody baby. I do not eat chitlins. But no, I didn't what did I do? I didn't do anything. I don't think I cooked anything special. I don't think because literally I really just cooked last week. I cooked some the week before what y'all's holidays y'all was celebrating. I had already just made some ribs and some chicken. Like I had just did that like prior to, so I wasn't gonna do it again just because they say, "Oh, it's time for you to do it." I kind of like doing things when people don't think that it should be going on, like for the sake thereof, not because they're telling me to do it.
I understand. I understand perfectly. Um, usually when we start talking about situations, we're talking about situations that happen down through the South or way up north. But I happen to be very familiar with Akron, Ohio.
Oh
It's
boy.
only like 68 miles from Youngstown.
Hmm.
I still have relatives that live in that Akron, Barberton area. And being from Dayton, I know you know where Akron is, so
I am definitely familiar with the act.
so this is not the first time. I mean, we had riots in Akron back in the day,
I
and
mean,
then
they rioted when LeBron Wade left. So I mean,
it's,
after LeBron Wade, when they became LeBron Wade.
uh, no, unfortunately, Dwayne's son is not named LeBron, and he seems to he seems to
LeBron
have.
Wade. That was the combination. When LeBron James left, they definitely rioted and made a fool and was doing all types of crazy things up there. So, I'm kind of happy that they shut things down on behalf of injustice.
But once again, as I was saying, like, and I'll talk about Javon in a minute, but I don't know if you've been keeping up with it, but they actually ask for people to suspend the demonstration because, of course, there has to be a shooting, and at the I'm not sure whether it's the funeral or the wake, there was a drive by, and his 4-year-old niece got shot and killed.
The gentleman that got shot and killed
His
his
niece, his niece got shot and killed at this drive by. She was 4 years old. Um, so the official demonstrations that they had for him were suspended, but you know. First of all, and I was good. I was trying to put this in the proper perspective because, first of all, this was something. The incident happened under state jurisdiction or it happened by police.
Right.
So what is the need for any type of retaliation at the funeral? There was no there was not it was not gang related. I mean, this is why I think like when we try to make steps forward and ask for justice, we have an a senseless incident, and
So my
as
question,
go
what was
ahead.
the investigation behind the niece's shooting like? Because I sometimes believe that some things are done mischievously. I think that some things can be staged somewhat without sounding like it's a conspiracy. Because it doesn't make sense, like you said, for um there to be a drive-by shooting unless something else was going on within his family system, and that was an opportunity for a gang to come through and do, or somebody that had a vengeance with somebody else that they knew would be present there, and they was taking that opportunity to do that. It doesn't make sense.
Right. And
And
like
even if that, why would you do that there?
right.
But in some instances, um thinking on a street level, there are some instances where some people don't come out, don't, they won't come out of certain places, whether it's hiding or some form of a witness protection type thing, even if it's not officially done. So when you think about it like that, the only excuse or the only thing that makes way to why something like that would happen is somebody knew that there was an opportunity to try to get somebody. And it's unfortunate when people get killed, innocent people, especially children, get killed in the crossfire of somebody else's drama or nonsense, because there it doesn't make sense. It wasn't nothing outside of, like what you said, it was the police that did it. So why is there a shooting there? Without it being conspiracy, it is an opportunity. But the only other, if it's not an opportunity, then it's definitely a conspiracy in my eyes.
Right. See, and that's where you don't really want to go there. But
Mm.
when you look at history,
Mhm.
it's not beyond the pale of that. Well, hey, we'll
We
just go by
know
and
what
shoot
the
them.
capabilities of um
Right.
capabilities of all people that could possibly be involved are, whether it's angry citizens that's looking for opportunity to either start a war, a turf war, or agitate something that's already going on. And then it's always strange to me because a lot of times we don't know what people have going on in their lives outside of this main big incident. So I just feel so bad that he was killed to begin with, and then for his niece to be killed, that's just definitely heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that there'll be an investigation, whatever that means. But you know,
I mean, was
uh,
there cameras out where like, is there
well,
video of the incident?
well, there are the usual cameras and whatever cameras were around, but right now we're you know kind of held in the blind, while they go through their investigation. But that's kind of the the reason why it hasn't, because I was wondering why it was kind of blacked out on the news, and then I had to go to the local newspaper, the Akron Beacon Journal, and I saw it there. But staying in the same vein, um, we have 90 shots fired at a fleeing. suspect. Now that part we have no part with. He was fleeing. We all know that, saw that on the video. And then, see, once again, maybe it's me, but this multiplicity of shots in order for you to hit a target. I mean, I've always been taught to be economical with my goddamn bullets. I mean,
Right.
but so but so if you, I mean, how do you keep from hitting each other? You're not in a formation. You're not, everybody's at a different angle. Uh, you know, bullets ricochet. They don't
Think
always. I
that
mean, how do you possibly justify all of these officers shooting at the same time? I mean, is this at the firing range, fire at
that's what it
will?
sounds like. Because I'm just sitting here and I'm kind of looking off and thinking, like, trying to picture and imagine the bird's eye view of the scenario and how this happens in such a, because 90 shots is a lot, just period. Like you said, like it had to be 100. It should have been 100 officers out there for it to be 90 shots. Because how many times did you have to change your magazine? How many times? Because you didn't. That's a lot, and it's definitely not called for, especially for a gentleman that's running away. But it sounds like target practice. It sounds like um training more than it is an actual live event. It sounds like something they would do in training.
Yeah, I mean, and then, you know, where did the other 30 bullets go? He got hit 60 times. Where did the other 30 bullets go?
I couldn't
And
even
and,
imagine him being hit 60
and
times. That is ridiculous because one person's body should not be able to, can't take that many shots and remain intact.
you think I mean, but if he had been in a white suburban neighborhood, would there have been that many shots? I mean, would they have been
Sometimes
that?
these
Would
killings
they have
seem
been
like
that
a
careless?
sometimes these killings to me seem like a threat. Like, Imma show y'all what happens when y'all get out of line type of thing to me. Sometimes it is so over the top, like you said, it's like a firing line where they're trying to prove a point, trying to make an example out of somebody that doesn't need to be made an example out of. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so sickening. I'm kind of numb at this point between the COVID deaths and just the killings and shootings, and especially by cops, and the government corruption and just everything. I feel like I'm shutting down. Like, I'm just numb to it all because at this point I think that's just what I expect, and that's
Well,
crazy.
now, okay, now let's do a contrast here. Okay,
Mhm.
the white guy that shot up all of the people uh, just before this shooting, he didn't even fire 70 shots, and he killed 7 people and wounded 30 plus.
Which white guy? It's been at
The
least two
the
or
the
three of them in the
no
last month
the latest one, the one that just shot the
in
people.
Chicago.
Yeah, and then ran out dressed like a woman uh, into the crowd, and then was taken peacefully. I mean, they didn't. It
The fact
wasn't
that
as
they take all
it,
these people peacefully is what is damn,
right. I mean,
it's heartbreaking, But
I
it sh
mean,
that's
it
why I
wasn't
say it feels like
it
a
wasn't
threat.
like the guy at the church, they didn't take him to Burger King, but I mean,
Shit, they might as well have. Shit,
that's
he killed all these damn people. How is he alive? How do they take these people unless they scared? They scared of the real killers, and they just take advantage of the black people and not even just black people, because there's other people that get killed that's unarmed, but they take advantage of the opportunities when people they know they ain't really a threat, but they just in they mood, and then they killing people that shouldn't be killed. But then when the real killers, these niggas, they standing in the hallways letting the kids get killed. They taking the people to Burger King. They arrest every last white person that do these massacres like this. I've never in my life, and maybe this is why I feel numb, because it feels like this is just what it is. They do whatever they want to, and only thing you can do is grit, bear it, and fight in whichever way you know how to fight.
I agree with that, with that premise, but I think that, like you said, getting into conspiracies, theories or whatever, but the object is to make you numb, just like when you had the public whippings. He ran away, so
I mean, no,
it's
being numb
time to
doesn't mean
retreat. And
excuse though.
oh yeah,
It's
I
just, I mean, like I can't continue to emotionally react to um what has become a pattern of behavior for the government. They do bull crap all the time, and then they find a way to weasel out of it as much as they can and as often as they can. And it seems as though when we respond emotionally, nothing gets done, besides things like Juneteenth. We don't give a damn about no goddamn Juneteenth. Shit, we don't need that. That's not what we need. The Asian hate bill. I mean, they got every bill that you can think of. The LGBTQ plus community bill. They got everything that you can imagine protected, but black people.
Dr. Casey, whether you knew it or not, we didn't act for Black History Month.
I mean,
I mean, that that was another little reward that came down, so that you
something
could have an extra barbecue and
here go a
yeah,
sucker. Here go
right.
a sucker for the sucker.
Yeah.
We gonna give you this, and you gonna celebrate this for the next 30 years before you realize that this ain't shit either. Because we minimize that too. We play off the people that we killed, and then we act like we love them so much, but y'all assassinate these people. How you love them and you're killing them at the same time? It don't make sense.
Well,
I get frustrated. I think that's why I say I'm numb, because then I get frustrated, and then I'm like, ugh.
well, I mean, look at critical race theory. Even though it's not taught in the schools, how can you possibly teach the history of America without teaching slavery? It doesn't
Listen,
make.
let me tell you, I just seen a post on Instagram where some guy was in Arizona asking them about if they should teach critical race theory, and they like, no, we're not going to teach all of it, just part of it. They don't need to know it. Like, okay, they don't want the truth. They want the pleasant version of the truth. And that's a lie, because there is no pleasant version of the truth. They
I
want to
mean,
create something that does not exist.
no, and like you say, it's just not about black people per se. Chinese, indigenous people. I mean, we can go on down the line. But it's funny that you mentioned Arizona, because Arizona now has a law where you cannot be within 8 feet filming police activity, whatever that means. That's the phrase, police activity.
8 feet is not really a long way, and I'm saying that because, um, it's not. I mean, it's a distance to which everybody would be safe even if they were filming it, so they not right on top. But and what it would do is prevent people from trying to intervene while they're filming. But
What if you're a passenger in the car?
I don't know. Just don't, I'm gonna film
I mean,
regardless. Y'all just about to send me to jail, goddamn. Because if you in my vehicle, then I'm filming. But I think it. I don't know. I haven't read the law, but I would like to believe. I would like to believe that it is an uninvolved person and not somebody that is involved in the incident.
well,
I will
you
hope.
know, it
You
is
know,
Arizona, so
I don't know.
they might make it up as it goes along.
Yeah. Listen, they just started celebrating Martin Luther King Day in 2009. That
Well,
I lived there and they was like, this is the first time. The first time?
yeah,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
ma'am. That's right.
2009. All right.
It's- yeah,
They're a little bit
So
behind, but hey, so you know what we dealing with. I mean, but when I lived there, it was not a lot of black people there. So it's a lot of things that it just wasn't going on.
there has not been a mass exodus to Arizona since you left.
Well, no, I hear that there's plenty more black people that have migrated there.
Yeah, yeah.
But listen, it's too hot for me. And it's a dry heat. And it remind me of Iraq. So I was having flashbacks and, aggravating my damn PTSD. So
Yeah, I hear you. But I have given some thought about moving to Vegas, but that's another conversation.
well,
But
my one of my favorite places is San Diego. Like, I don't know what it is about San Diego, but I just hold that place deep in my heart, and I want a second home there.
oh yeah, hey, if you can afford San Diego, there's no better place in the United States. I mean, most for the most part, I mean, we do have some knuckleheads out here. It's California,
I mean,
but
right.
but for the most part, if you don't go looking for trouble, trouble's not really gonna go looking for you. Coming looking for you. You can, like anywhere else, but
Yeah,
you know,
it's definitely has been one of my favorite places. Now I haven't been to San Francisco or up the coast, but I definitely prefer it over LA.
yeah. Oh, well, mo- most
No
definitely
shade.
over. Yeah, most definitely over LA. And another climate where the police are not exactly uh, hospitable to people of color.
I mean, but
Uh,
where are they? I mean,
but you know, it just seems, and I know I might be the ultimate pessimist here, but I keep looking at the days, like with our so-called leaders back in the day. If you weren't, I mean, look at who's still here: Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, and yeah, and you
I mean,
so
and
so
what are they leading now other than the crusades when they do their whole publicity thing whenever somebody get killed by the police? If it's not something that's super major, then they're not helping the little people. They're not a lot of these organizations, they don't help people like me and you when we need it. They only go into effect when it's something big and they can get national publicity for it. And that's
yeah,
the sad part.
and like I said, I mean, I've bashed the boys for a long time, not just within the last 4 or 5 years, but for the last decade or more, uh, because you know, when he was wearing the big suit, when he was big suit Al Sharpton, he didn't do nothing. I mean, what did he do then? Except, you know, uh,
What has he been doing?
well, Al's a pimp. Y'all just ain't realized it, but
Yeah,
Al's a pimp, It's,
he fit the
you know,
description. Look at him. From back then to now. See, but that the thing is, kind of like how pastors are, a lot of politicians come from um diverse backgrounds that are not always squeaky clean, and then they learn how to use that charm and that charisma in the political game. And that is always kind of what we run into, where whether it is in the pulpit or in politics. I like that one.
you yeah, you can look back and think about that one again, but I mean, uh, another reason, for me to be skeptical about religion, as always, uh it, and I'm gonna go way off the subject here, but like, I haven't seen Al in Akron, but I have seen him talk about Brittany Griner, you know, and
They're not doing enough to get her home either.
well, okay, let's talk about that for a minute, okay, because the excuse for being there in the first place is that I need the money. You make over $1 million a year, baby girl. So yeah. Now there you go. Because I'm greedy. Now I go for that excuse. Okay, but then because you're greedy, I have to try to make sure that I get you. You had no. You okay? I
Not with
live.
the shit that she had. She
Yeah,
why
yeah.
what is you
I,
doing?
you know, I make less than you pay in taxes.
Mhm.
Okay, you know. So I'm not going for this excuse. Well, we need, if the WBA paid us like so and so. Hey, if you can't live off of what you got plus that bonus, I mean, come on now. At some
See, but
point.
that's that. The thing is, okay, so I was son's school a couple years back. He's in the talented and gifted program. Both my kids are. Shout out to them. They're in the talented and gifted program, and it took us to the Mercedes Benz Stadium once. And during the tour of that, one of the other parents was saying that used to be a sports agent, and how a lot of athletes, they don't have any financial knowledge to maintain their livelihood. So they go and they overspend and they live way beyond their means. And then they're basically kind of living from paycheck to paycheck, on the higher end of the pay scale, but they still live very broke because everything that well, it's kind of like with even entertainers, rappers, or even if you're an actor, you go in and they jump in over their head, taking care of people, getting stuff that they always wanted. And then when it's time, a lot of times it's either on advance or credit. So they trying to pay back, and every time they earn, they paying back. And it's kind of how you get caught up in credit cards, where you spend so much to where now you got to put all your money on the credit card and keep using the credit card instead of ever paying the credit card off and actually having money to spend. So a lot of these sports athletes in all fields, not just her, they're not financially responsible, and it puts them in a position to where they have to still be money grubbers even as millionaires.
Yeah, no, I believe me, I understand the concept when like, when I lived the life of crime, like, hey, diamond, tennis bracelet for the old lady, did nothing but 10 toes and what was it back then? The Johnny Chews or whatever,
Uh-huh,
you know,
okay, I see it. I
you know,
see you,
and,
Slim.
I mean, I'd have my leather and whatnot. I mean, so I understand that, but and that's all part of living life on the edge. But at the same time, I didn't have somebody giving me $800,000 at one time, and you know, so even at that level, I plan to work twice a year. Okay, I mean, uh, baby girl, if you try to make me work 3 times a year, now you put me under some extra stress here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you know, even though we live beyond our means, you still have to, well, now, uh, I'm in Ohio. Now, am I going to go to Texas and rob a bank? What's the law look like down there? What
Texas is
happens?
not the right place to do no crimes. Listen, if you are listening in right now, if you tuned in live or listen back, you need to know that Texas is not the place that you do that at. Okay.
Yes, and I was out in the desert for a couple of days trying to prove the fact that Texas Rangers do more than wear the goddamn big ass hats. And, so I learned the hard way, yes.
Hello.
And as soon as I got my ass back to Ohio, I made sure that I never took my ass back to Texas again. In,
Hello.
in, in that respect. So yeah, but
I just wanted to give that disclaimer because I don't want nobody trying nothing in Texas. Okay, they are going to put you away for a long time. There, Louisiana, probably Alabama, Mississippi,
well,
all those
no,
southern states.
what you better tell them is that there is no federal parole system. So what you get is what you get.
I mean, well, I
The-
don't believe in parole. I don't like parole because if you serve all your time, then they ain't gonna be hounding you. But when you don't and you get out on probation or parole, then guess what? They gonna be on your waiting for you to mess up, and they hoping that you
oh
mess
yeah,
up more than
yeah,
they mess
yeah,
up.
yeah.
So I prefer to suggest to people, even though I've never been to jail before, I don't know how it is. I'm watching Orange is Black for the first time. I'm like way deep in. No, so if it's anything like that, I'm glad that I missed out. I have two cousins in jail, and I pray that they are not going through things that I seen there. But they want you to be back in, so I do not support the parole probation shit. I think it's a scam. It's a scam. They
Well,
scamming you.
I mean, when you think about it, the parole board, the whole parole system,
Hmm.
is something that those of us that have been in the system have been talking about for years, and how corrupt it is, and so forth and so on, which is also a topic for another day. But in addition to talking about Roe versus Wade and some of the Supreme Court decisions, now they've also said that it was okay for this coach to come out on the 50-yard line and pray after the game.
Hmm.
But I wonder what if he had taken a prayer rug out there with him? What if he had been, like, taking the Torah out there to read? What if he had been any religion other than Christian? And what do you think is going to happen if, by chance, somebody decides to challenge this and does go out to the middle of the field with a prayer rug?
I think that this will be very interesting overall. It's a lot of things in life right now that I think will be or is interesting and will continue to be interesting to watch it play out because we're literally like watching reality TV in live person right now. You know what I'm saying? So they definitely would not have enjoyed somebody bringing out a prayer rug or doing anything that is non-Christian, just because of the strongholds that religion has over the American culture and society and the way you're viewed if you're anything else. Um, which I want to ask you about if you heard what Creflo said about tithing, but I know that's a whole different subject. Um, uh,
Oh,
but
we're gonna have to talk about Cephalo, and I don't know if I don't know if you're hip to Pastor Gino.
mm-mm.
Okay, you have to check out some of Pastor Gino's references, especially to reference the way that women dress. He also talks about tithing and some other things. He's from, I think it's the first Christian church, but he
Mhm.
has plenty of videos up on. I think it's Reverend Gio Jennings, Gino Jennings, uh, and I'm sure that you will enjoy a lot of the things that he has to say.
I mean, but what does Creflo denounce tithing and
Yes,
tell people to
yes,
burn all of his stuff,
yes.
which I am very proud. I call him Granddaddy Dollar because I went to Mace's church, you know Mace the rapper, and he was up under Creflo. So I call him Granddaddy Dollar, and I hate listening to him. I have a whole lot of episodes on Speaking Freedom TV because sometimes I be listening to him and he would just be saying his own thing and it don't be in the Bible. And I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, but I've talked about the tithing thing because that's where I always get lost. When they start talking about giving, I immediately be ready to shut the whole thing down because so when he said that, I was proud of him because I've been saying that for a very long time. And you know, they used to tell people they was cursed and they was going to hell if they wasn't tithing. So it's very interesting to have heard him go hard on people not tithing, only to come back and say tithing isn't really biblical.
But what was the alternative? Wasn't it you give according? How did they put that? According to your blessing.
Well, you technically, based on the word, you're supposed to give whatever you and God have discussed before you go. And then you're not supposed to be pressured into doing anything other than that. Like it shouldn't be no extra fun and no, building fun and all those other funds in order to really just take money out of people's pockets. Um,
So now, so you cut out the tithing, but what
I
about
mean, you
like
can still give if
like
you wanna give, like,
no, but what about the building fund and the
well, I
scholarship
don't really at
fund
this
and
point, Granddaddy Dollar should really be straight financially. He should have enough investments, and his portfolio should be good enough to really sustain what he has already accomplished, but people are still going to want to tithe because in their mind, it is a sin if they don't. They've
well,
been implanted that in their head, even though he told people to burn all of everything and to destroy all the notes and everything that he ever said about it, in their mind, it doesn't just click off like that. That's not how it works. They're going to be struggling in their mind with that for a very long time because the pressure in the world is that if you don't tithe, then bad stuff is going to happen to you.
it's kind of like being free from slavery, right? If you're
Right.
not if you're not loyal to the master, something bad's gonna happen to you.
And that's how
You
they get you.
right. So shackles. Hey, shackles on my feet do not be shackles on my mind.
Right.
I so but yeah, it's and you know speaking of conspiracy theories, hey, like you say, I got enough, and people are going to be stuck on that tithing for the next 20 years anyway. So,
Mhm.
you know,
I
I
mean,
can tell
I know he ain't giving none of these people no refunds because that's what the first thing I
that,
said. Like, so you giving people refunds? Because I know you ain't giving people refunds.
that of
These
course,
people that's been tithing to you for 20, 30 years.
you
And now
know,
you talk about ain't tithing ain't the Bible. Oh yeah, it's some people
yeah,
that left, some people that's mad, some people that's upset. But when I
yeah,
first came to the understanding about tithing, and when I really woke up out of the stronghold of religion, I was disappointed. But then I had kind of removed the disappointment that I had for Mace as my spiritual leader because he literally only did what Creflo told him to do, only said what he was allowed
yeah,
to say. And I feel the same way kind of about Creflo, although he said he's been wanting to say something for a long time. Um, they a lot of these leaders are only replicating exact word for word quotes from their grandmother or what their pastor told them to say
and the
or what
pastor before
the
them,
rhetoric
and
yeah, the
yeah, yeah.
rhetoric that has been set in stone. This is what you say. This is how you say it. And then you gotta put that, no.
Yeah, you know, hey,
They
you
teach
know,
you all of
yeah,
that though in
yeah.
school. And you know, when they training you, they teach you that.
Yeah, of course. You know, hey, when before the handkerchiefs was silk, you know, you rub it across, you know, and yeah, I mean, you know, hey, you know, now they silk, we can't do that no more. You know,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
you know, but when they was cotton, that's what they was made for. You know,
Right.
if the river don't break a sweat and you don't see, you know, the you know, hey. So yeah,
And that's why they do all that hooping and hollering because you had to earn that, you know what I'm saying? Like
yes, sir. Yeah, yeah,
it's a performance for real, and
yes,
I'm
you
not
know.
trying to be funny, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, I'm not trying to belittle anybody's spiritual leaders. It
I'm a
is a
preacher's kid. Come
performance.
on, you
Well,
know, like
for
I
the
said, I
audience,
mean, you know,
and for the people that are not PKs, that people that still believe in church to the point to where because I'm telling you, I had some family in town recently, and my aunt was here, and um she's not really a Bible thumper, but she was so spiritual that it was just like, oh my God, I just want my people to be free because she's quoting scripture, she's doing all of this, and it's almost like people do that, and not specifically her, but I'll say when I was in church, it's almost like you end up doing those things to kind of psych your mind out of believing whatever it is that you're actually going through. And it is a coping mechanism, but I don't think it's the most healthiest one. So it takes a while to get out of that spiritual stronghold mentally because even though the chains are off, people still are enslaved. You know,
I,
they mentally they are and religion I think is the key to enslavement because it tells you not to question or nothing. You just go along with whatever they tell you.
I have a sister that's very, very deeply involved in the church, as well as some family, but this particular sister is a little more zealous,
Mhm.
and I would be willing to bet that she's one of the ones that telling her not to tithe. Well, you know, I've already promised this 10% to the Lord. So, you know,
Mhm.
as a matter of fact, you know, she might have been the one that was probably given a little more than 10%. So
Listen, when I was in church, I
now
was.
all of a sudden, for somebody to tell her that she doesn't have to tie, she's not going. You know, it's like, you know, take like I said, taking the chains off a slave and saying you're free.
I remember one year I think I gave my check for like 6 months or more. And I'm not upset that I did it because I will say that God is really taking care of me. And it was not, you know what I'm saying? Like there are some things that have happened since then and I'd be like, well, maybe it didn't go for naught because my heart was in the right place despite what the other person was doing. But I also know that the things that God is going to do, He's going to do regardless if I give financially or not. So it's kind of like one of those you just got to have faith in the good part of it.
Right, right. I mean, that's you know. kind of the freedom that I enjoy as an agnostic, that I don't have to put a name on it, but I can, the fruits of the labor, then, that proves that there is something higher than I am. Thank God. You know, but it also goes back to some of the conversations that we have about aliens and
Mhm.
things like that. When you know, it, to me, it's a nightmare thinking that we are the most intelligent things in the universe. But to some other people, then that's how they achieve their greatness. It's kind of I mean, are we gonna be taking the same prejudices to Mars that we have in Alabama?
Alabama, yeah.
So it's things that I think that we all have to talk about. But I was just wondering how you thought about that Supreme Court decision about being able to pray, because to me it goes back to, I remember in grade school you said the Pledge of Allegiance, you said the Lord's Prayer, and then the principal came on the internet, the intercom, and uh, then when you got to junior high school, you got you got a little bit more freedom, to move around for a couple classes, but you still said that Pledge of Allegiance, and you still said the Lord's Prayer. Then all of a sudden, we didn't have to do that no more,
Mhm.
you know. So,
Did y'all get in trouble for not saying the either of those?
um, not in trouble per se, unless you were persistent, you know. But back in those days, you got in more trouble when you got home for not for not saying the Lord's Prayer, or, because, hey, like I said, as a PK, I'm praying every night anyway. But
Right.
and my father being a veteran, but I mean, just being my little, agitated little behind, I mean, uh, my attention span was one of the things, and like, maybe after, on Thursday and Friday, maybe I didn't feel like saying the Lord's Prayer, or
Right.
so, you know but that brought trouble at home, which I, now, things are a little bit different. I have no problem with what Colin Kaepernick did, and I know we're getting way off the subject and all like that, but because when you listen, or if you know the words to the Star Spangled Banner, you know, maybe you should think about what, there was a reason for him to kneel. But uh, like I said, I think that in Kaepernick's decision anyway, Kaepernick gave up a lot of things, and he knew that he was giving them up. So
Mhm.
he made a self-sacrifice, and not only
So
that,
how do you feel about him going being open to go back into the league?
um, I think he should be open to going back into the league. As a matter of fact, I think under normal circumstances, if he had had a regular job, he could probably fight for workman's comp and get it.
Mhm.
you know, but the thing of it is that he's playing sports, and every year you got a bunch of 18 or 19-year-olds that are coming out and
Straight
competing
off.
for your job.
Mhm.
So I mean, you know, I don't think now there are some quarterbacks that are playing now that I think that he's better than, but I don't think that he's a starting material. But I think hey, he has a certain role. I mean, whether it's in leadership or I mean, if uh, I'll
Or
put it
would that
like
be
that.
is this a real opportunity for him, or do you think that it is
No,
a
no,
ploy
no.
to, y garner, what comes with hiring him again?
Well, as far as he's concerned, he's kind of in a no win situation if he
Mm,
hasn't gotten the money that he's going to get for whatever that settlement was. Because if you bring him into the locker room, he's going to be a distraction. If he doesn't play well, then it's because I mean,
the pressure, it's a million excuses.
right, right. So I think for the good of everyone involved, if you want to find a place for him, then just like you give people jobs to tell the rookies, like you said, like how to handle their money. You could tell them how to handle certain social situations since you've been through it already. I mean, if
I
the
think that,
if the NFL wanted to find him a job,
they could.
they could. Come on.
I think that all, professional sports, players and all entertainers should have a life coach. If not a life coach, then somebody that is not a part of everything else, that has like a spiritual or a coaching type of background to help them understand, every um
But
milestone in their life as they become who they're supposed to be.
but see, then you have to recognize
I mean, now
that.
the teams and shit ain't gonna like it because then you got somebody that's making sure they read and shit. They making sure that they, what I'm saying, on top of their
Well,
game in ways that would be
but
against
but
the dollar, the bottom dollar,
but the team might give you a life coach so that you buy into the philosophy of the team.
right?
But
Well, I wouldn't
but
want it
but
to
but
be
but
a team
but
person. They should have their own
yeah,
individual, like your
and
doctors.
and I understand what you're saying, but as that alpha male, and now this is and we've kind of talked about this to a certain extent, and I wouldn't I'm going to use this as a euphemism when I say a lot of guys don't want to get in touch with that feminine side that says that they need this.
I
It's
think we're in
just
a different time. I think that we're coming to a place where people are more
right.
open to it.
Right, right, right. That's what I was going to say is like in this particular time, they are, but then you also have the Antonio Browns of today, and some of the other some of the other guys that are still.
But
We
a
just
person
had
like him, he needs somebody and not some he don't need a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist well, he might need all 3 of those. He
you
might
might
need to
need all
see it.
three,
I don't
right?
wanna
Yeah,
discredit the fact that he might have some serious issues that would render a diagnosis, but he also needs somebody, I don't wanna say like me, but a person in my, expertise that's gonna tell him, "Nick, you is acting a fool. Sit your ass down somewhere." And sometimes some
Terrell
people
Owens
have never
would be another good example. Where it's like it's all about me. You know,
well, but when he got his dose of reality at some point too. Everybody gets their dose of reality, but a lot of times you're dealing with people that's surrounded by yes people, people that want. It's just like with R. Kelly. He's surrounded by people that's going to do whatever he says so that they can get whatever they're trying to get from him. So as long as somebody is able to take advantage of them, they're going to feel like they're always right until somebody that's like boy, sit your ass down somewhere where come into their life that's not like this is why most times successful women have a harder time dating because successful men, especially extremely wealthy men, they're used to being with people that do not challenge them at all. I'm talking about their friends don't say nothing. They, you know what I'm saying, significant other ain't saying nothing. Nobody around them is telling them the truth about anything in most cases. And that makes them think that they are always right. That's what instills the narcissism in a lot of people and reinforces toxic behavior patterns that they've picked up to survive. But when you get somebody around that doesn't need you financially, that even though you might pay them, this is the reason, some of the reason why I don't really take payments from a lot of people, and I try to redirect how I handle my business, because once a person is in your pocket, they feel like they can say something to you that if they ain't paying you nothing, then you can't say nothing to me, and I'm gonna talk the way I'm gonna talk, and you're gonna get this real. And a lot of times people shut off the real because they want to stay on that payroll, and these people never have a real live reality check until something bad happens. And that is the reason why I became a life coach, to try to prevent a person having to wait for something bad to happen in order to wake up and smell the,
But,
oh,
but
Jesus.
Dr. Casey, how many people go to the doctor before they get sick?
Not well. What the people that we're talking about oftentimes have to go to the doctor on a regular basis. But you're right. Most times people are way far off. Just like most people don't start going to church till they way far. They so far gone to where they're looking for a savior. But that is what's dangerous, because then you get in these loops sometimes where you never cycle into growth. You just stay right where you are because these people, they need you to keep paying them every month or every 2 weeks or however often they say your treatment plan is supposed to be. When you're dealing with a life coach, the goal is to help facilitate what you're trying to do short term, but to teach you long term skills so that you don't have to always need somebody else to help you make those type of decisions and understand things.
But you know, once again, I got to go to some of these false prophets or whatever you want to call them. Because you know, people talk about the effect that Trump had, but we have people that have been in the church for 20, 30 years. It's, you know, I mean, Grandma Edna over there, she been here since she was 12.
I want to sum America up in one word. In the words of Joe Biden, I better, 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 better.
So I mean,
Listen, people are comfortable, and that's the problem. I was just talking to a gentleman today, and what it might have been yesterday. We was talking about how Haiti is such a place where they get the shorty end of the stick, and it's mostly because they're the only black nation that survived the European takeover. And they wasn't going for it, but now they suffer from it. And I think they're one of the freest countries because they don't have any overseers necessarily like that. Although they may be poor financially and they might not know, because he's like, well, they don't know what TV is. I'm thinking like, bruh, it's a lot of things that we got that we don't need that just messes up even more than what we already were. So it's just we gotta come to a place to where um we got to start taking accountability and even holding people accountable, because when you think about, they talked about Trump, but Joe is not doing really well right now. Like, I don't think that he has done half of the things that he said that he would do is like the bare minimum of trying to accomplish some things just so that he can say he did it. But I pray that he doesn't get elected again.
Well, okay. Now, see, you're gonna make me didn't want to talk about this.
Come on. Come on,
Okay,
Cletus.
okay. First of all, Joe is in the same situation that Obama was in because it don't matter how much Joe does wants to do if he can't get it past the Senate. Just like Joe, I mean, because when you think about it, we should have never had Justice Kavanaugh because Obama was trying to appoint who's the guy that's Attorney General, and Mitch McConnell wouldn't even hear about it. So a lot of things that
I mean, but that's because Obama was black.
well, yeah, yeah, and but Joe is as far as
And
the
everything
few.
isn't black and white people. It's just that's a
No,
fact
no,
that
yeah,
they
yeah,
definitely discriminated against him in a large majority and minority way, just based on the fact of who he was.
right. I mean, Mitch McConnell came out and said that almost the second day after he took the oath of office. But a lot of people still think that look upon him as Joe as Obama's vice president. You
Hmm.
know, and but I do agree with you that I don't think Joe should run again. But
I don't think
then
he should
again,
be in office now.
well, then again, I didn't think that he should have been elected in the first place. But you know, you're between him and Bernie. So
I mean, but
you know,
Bernie is a little bit more cognitive than Joe has been appearing as of late. As of late, between the jumble up words, the quotes in the teleprompter, falling off the bike, and all of those other things, there is a slew of things right now that's saying he is not capable in his old age to continue on this
oh,
path.
I definitely agree with you, and I think if it had been anyone else but Trump up there, he probably would not have won because people who
Right.
didn't vote for Biden, they voted against Trump. That's
Hmm.
just the way it was, But no, I think that as far as the left is concerned, we're in big trouble because I don't really see where they're grooming Carmella to take over. I mean, she seems to be just more of a figurehead. She's not really, I mean, what are you going to do?
She
Pick,
was for the black vote, and the female vote.
right?
And I'm not saying she's not useful. I wasn't for her. I did not vote in the presidential race at all. I was not for them, and I wasn't for Trump as either. But I know she probably has more that she could bring to the table, but it doesn't look like they're really allowing her at the table, like to hold conversation. It's just like she's a placement, like a
well,
centerpiece.
well, once again, and it's probably the first thing that's going to come up. She's married to a white man.
Right. So that was that her end?
And well, I mean, hey, I can't say that I think she did the best job out here in California as being a prosecutor. I definitely can't say that. Oh my goodness, here comes Mr. Scott. Oh my goodness, I don't know. Let me see. Good evening, Mr. Scott.
Well, greetings, good people.
How you doing, Mr. Scott?
I'm doing very good, very good. It's so wonderful to see you, you folks, Dr. Casey, looking very lovely. James King doing what he does. Um,
We're happy to have you. We've been on a tangent. We didn't even talk about what we're supposed to be talking about, what we did, but it kind of just got away a little bit.
well, there's a lot to be talked about. I'm telling you, there's so a lot to be talked about.
Well, I, I started out talking, of course, about Akron. Since Dr. Casey and I are both from Ohio, we're kind of familiar with the area and the history of the area. But there was something that happened that kind of, well, not only did I believe it set back from the actual event that happened, but once again, it kind of showed that uh, there seems to be uh, no type of rhyme or reason to why people do things. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I believe it was uh, Saturday where they had the services, or I'm not sure whether it was the actual funeral service or whether it was a memorial service for the young man that got killed by the police, but they had a drive by at the funeral in which his 4 year old niece was killed. So, and we were kind of discussing is since this was a police shooting, why would it be necessary for there to be some type of retaliation at the memorial service unless, you know, well, what's your thoughts on that, Mr. Scott? Because you've often talked about these senseless killing of children. Uh,
Yeah, James, Dr. Casey, these things have been played out all over our country. We have the same thing happen here where we're at the funeral home and somebody goes by and sprays bullets. I mean, it's we're in a time frame, James, and just today I was reading some one of the things that is just the most ridiculous things. I mean, these people are really going nuts here. These people really are off the hook. Now, I think it was it in Arizona or Florida where they said now you can't film the police doing their dirt.
we
You
were
can't
talking
even
about that
you
too.
can't you can't even film them doing their dirt. Now, if that girl hadn't been there right around the corner here on 38th in Chicago and took that picture of this man on George Floyd's neck, if she hadn't been allowed to do that, this thing could that we would have never known about that. They
Mm.
would have covered that policeman, that Chauvin. He walked around so nonchalantly, like he was Marshall Dillon. He just thought he just made me so sick. I wanted to. Oh, if I could have got a hold of him right at that minute, boy, I would have had my hands on his neck, and it would have took the National Guard to get my hands off the man's neck. But now they don't want you to film. They don't want you to see their dirt. So we're really and James, like you were saying, the senseless, where we're doing something that isn't. It's almost like we've been so desensitized or so divided. Up here, there's another thing. 4th of July, they was raising hell up here. 4th of July, it wasn't safe. People were throwing rocket bottles at the police, doing cars, wheelies around. And one of the politicians said, well, we have to talk to because there was a lot of black people there. There was, I mean, maybe some Somalis. I don't know, but this white politician happened to say, "Well, we got to get these Somali families together so that we want to talk to their kids and blah blah." Oh, Somalis had a fit. Oh, they're trying to run the man out of office because he even mentioned them. What have we become? I mean, I don't know what to say. What have we become when we lower to these kind of levels? I I have no answer for it, James. I really don't. we have election coming up here. What these midterms in November, and I've know some people that are going against Ilhan. And I don't know if you remember James on our show, we had a Somali lady that's going for a different district to be a congresswoman. And they say there's looks like there's a divide between the Somalis up here and Ilhan. I mean, they actually had a thing where they booed her at an event. They almost booed her out of the place. That was a Somali event. So, I, you know, I don't know where we go. I really don't know where we go.
See, I understand, people in Minnesota being upset, with Ilhan, but it's kind of like us with Mike Tomlin. You know, uh, okay, so we got Mike Tomlin, and you know, you might want another coach, but who's better? Is it better the devil that you know, or the one that you think that you know? Brother Williams, how you doing tonight?
I'm pretty good. Can't complain.
uh,
I hadn't been shot 90 times yet, so I'm good.
well, no, he was only shot 60.
60. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad. I'm at
Yeah,
30. That
yeah,
30 rounds make all the difference in the world.
so we were kind of talking about that. Uh, of course, Dr. Casey and I, uh, you know, uh, this man, uh, they actually shot more bullets at him than the guy that did the shooting in Chicago, and he killed 8 people and wounded 30. They shot more bullets at Javon than think of that. They shot more bullets at one man than the man that killed 7 and wounded over 30. Brother Williams, talk to me.
Well, I want to put this out here because I want the listening audience to do their research on a police officer named Christopher Donner, who was an LA cop who recognized how corrupt the police department was, a black LA cop who went on a shooting spree himself from that standpoint. And I think it's important that other officers follow suit. I'm just going to throw that out there like that. And the reason why I say that is because we see that there's not going to be justice unless there is something done inside of the police departments. From his manifesto, I would just want to read what he wrote on part of his manifesto. From February the 5th to January the 9th, I saw some of the most vile things humans can inflict on others as a police officer in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the streets of LA, it was in the confounds of the LA police stations and cruises. The enemy combatants in LA are not the citizens and suspects, it's the police officers. That's from a police officer. He constantly kept trying to basically bring up and document all of the cases and all of the abuses that was going on in the police department and wasn't able to get make any headway with it. Got fed up and went on a rampage. Um, and I think it's just important that we recognize the fact that we're living in a time period to where mass shootings, I don't think are going to go away. I think things are just going to get worse because you're dealing with a population of people that have less ability to be able to recognize what it means to be able to be have self control. You're dealing with a younger population that actually caters themselves to having instantaneous results or reactions to situations. You're talking about mental illnesses that are going on the rise as a result of the youth and their inability to deal with situations in reality as it is, and a police department that obviously does not care for black life. And I see that they put more bullets into him than they would in an animal. When you have a shark that has tasted human meat or an alligator that tasted human meat, they put less rounds in that animal than they did in this guy. So that
I mean,
kind of puts could let you know the scale on where they value and position our life. It is only if we force change that change is going to happen. And I think you also need more police officers within the system, black cop officers. That's all I'm talking to at this point. Black officers within the system that are willing to stand up, that are willing to risk putting their job on the line and a livelihood on the line in order to make change.
But
now,
but Brother Wall, if I could just spring on that, with these mass shootings, what happens is what side runs up and says, well, our Second Amendment rights to have guns. Okay. Our, why in the world did this man in Chicago get a automatic weapon to do this? A man who obviously has a history. But then
Yeah.
again, they say our Second Amendment says, oh no, you can't stop that. We got to have, because they want that against us. That's what they
Yeah.
want. They want to make sure they have it against us. And so what they're doing is so transparent now, and I hope we can see that. How can you
Hmm.
say Minneapolis is down 350 police officers right now? They should have 850. They got 500. Okay, so Fourth of July, when they had all these outbursts and all these things, they tried to get the sheriffs and they tried to get the highway patrol to help. They said no. They say no, we're not going to do it. We're down too. I mean, so how can you say at the same time, when, like Brother Ward said, we need more police. We need to stop this lawlessness, but we need to get these guns out of there too. But they keep saying that they can't do it. They'll talk about it for a while, and then a deranged
Well,
person can go get that type of a rifle. I
As
don't.
a veteran with PTSD, I enjoy having my gun. I have never used my gun in no way that will harm somebody without cause or purpose. So I don't support taking guns away,
I don't either.
or or the fact that me having PTSD could possibly prevent me from getting a gun, because I should have a right to have a weapon, especially because I've been trained in weaponry. Um, but me having PTSD should not limit my ability to even get a rifle.
Well, that's not what I was saying. If somebody has PTSD or they have personal things, yeah, we have these rights and we can respect these rights. But I'm just saying we can't have both at the same time. We can't
Well,
say we don't need
well,
police, but
well,
yet we
I
can
didn't
have
say we
all
need
these
more
assault
police
rifles.
officers. I say we need more black officers that are willing to recognize that they are black instead of just blue. What I'm saying is that we need more people from within the system to challenge the system that are already officers that know this stuff is corrupt, that know this is what they are part of. That's what I'm stating. Because what I think you're having happen within the police department, I think the ones that recognize the problems within the police department are the ones that are quitting. So what you have left is the more racist ones are the ones that are staying, the ones that are in control, the ones that have worked themselves through the system and know how to work the system and know their comfort zones. More of those are the ones that are staying, and the ones that find themselves isolated and find their voices unheard and find that they want to do the right thing. Those are the ones quitting.
and Mr. Scott, I mean, I've often said on uh, your show that I'm one that believes in uh, police reform. And at one time, we had a conversation about the difference between defunding the police and reforming the police. Okay. And I've always been about reforming the police, but I don't believe that you can reform the police without also defunding the police, because there's no reason that police need tanks or more tanks or anti-personnel weapons than you have cruisers and people in the cars. And then when you speak about those people that have resigned or no longer have positions in the Minneapolis Police Department, as I also ran down, a lot of those people work behind the desk. You don't need people to work behind the desk. You need people that are out there in the community. This is what should be replaced. You, go ahead, Mr. Scott.
Well, no. I mean, I think we're talking about the same thing in different ways. I mean, I think when you're talking about having tanks and all having these military style weapons, of course they don't need that. I mean, yeah, they need funding to make sure we have. First of all, we've got to have enough officers, and his brother War says, and I certainly believe we need more blacks in our communities. That's how I grew up. There were policemen around me a lot that I knew, good people that took our community. Our community didn't have all this stuff going on in this area right here where I'm living. I'm speaking just to this. So the defunding, to me, it just seems to be something that gets people off track. I mean, I think we have to be very specific. No, they don't need tanks. They don't need more military style things. They need more officers that are humane. They need more officers that are trying to keep our community safe as opposed to escalating things, as opposed to us being what they're looking at. Their fear of us. I mean, I don't know how that's going to be dealt with, because that seems to be in the DNA of some of these. These white supremacists are up now. These hate groups are out there now. They want to have a voice. They tie it into having a gun, and they tie it into, instead of getting to what I think is the real issue is the safety. Is the safety. I mean, you can defund them, but then if defunding means we're going to have half the police officers we need, I that part I don't understand. But I mean, of course, they need funds to make it a good, safe community, and they have things that they have outreach. They have programs that are in the community that police are involved with. I grew up and played on the police baseball team. I played on a police baseball team. I don't see any of those kind of things going on now. I just don't. I don't see that. So yeah, it should be a reform. Obviously, this assaults on us. Yeah, it's got to stop. But what are the politicians get up there and say? Well, our Second Amendment rights, and they're it's a disconnect. To me, it's a disconnect to what the real issues are.
Brother Williams, I've questioned why you needed, a 35 round magazine to kill a deer. But can you kind of educate me on why you need 90, why you have to shoot 90 rounds at a suspect that's fleeing, and then how do you account for those other 30 rounds? Because all of those rounds got to be accounted for at some time or another. I mean, I was asking Dr. Casey, what is this, an exercise, fire at will? I mean,
That's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah, it definitely was. You talking about all of the police officers in fear of their life, of a man running in the opposite direction.
I mean, it just seemed like a training simulation is the way that they handled it. It didn't
Yep.
seem like they handled it as a real life thing, unless they go out on the weekends and do target practice like that. Because that's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah.
how do you get all of those men out of the line of fire?
How many officers was it total?
Well, there was at least 6 cars that they show in the video,
That's kind of
and
what I
you
remember. Somewhere between six and I think it was six. And so you
and
have to multiply that times the amount of rounds fired,
well,
divided.
it's a 15 round clip, right?
I mean, I thought
Yeah,
that was a standard
Yeah,
issue,
so
but that mean that they
that's what you're talking about. All six empty the 15 round clip, and that makes 90. That makes
yeah,
90 rounds right there.
right. So I mean, it's it is a matter of math, but I mean,
Yeah.
like like I said, I mean, how do you, you just first of all, how do you justify firing off 90 rounds? That's number one. You know,
Man,
uh,
I
and
found out I fired off a
it,
whole clip and had to reload in Iraq. And I mean, you really got to be trying to shoot something, like you got to really be, like, yeah, that's not an easy thing to do, to fire off a whole clip. Like, I mean, it's easy to do, but it shouldn't be. It's not
you're
that easy.
trained. You're trained at the five off in 5 round bursts. Come on, I mean,
But not in that situation though. That's
Right.
not one of those situations to where you should have been. I unloaded because we were being attacked by from a building
that
that was
that's
firing, and it was coming from everywhere. You really couldn't see where it was coming from.
that's
But
fired will.
Right.
you
The-
seen the fire coming from the building that the people were shooting from, and that's where I was shooting at. I was shooting at people shooting at me, and I emptied the clip and reloaded. They ass just was shooting at just, hey, let's do this, you guys. It seems almost like maybe somebody had an encounter with him. It seems like it's not just
Oh yeah.
as random. It cannot be as random as it seems, because that was intense. So I don't know if he's seen something, if he's seen another crime or seen the officer do something, and he had a target on his back, literally.
And notice how the media even went back to some old footage of him and tried to paint him as being, like a terrorist or a very bad person from that standpoint, to try to justify
Hmm.
the police shootings. And they
well, see,
always do that.
but here's my point, brother Williams. In Coronado, they would not have shot at him 60 times, 90 times, and for fear of who was around in the surroundings. Now, on Euclid Avenue, they might have done it because they didn't give
Yeah.
a damn about who was in the
Right.
surrounding area. So, it also depends upon where you get stopped. Sometimes you might have to pull into those white suburbs before you decide to pull over. So that
Oh, I've, I've
you
I've done that before. I've done that, and when I lived in Dallas, I had an officer that hit his lights and was and for me to pull over, and I maintained a 30-mile-an-hour pace until I got to a gas station,
And
see.
where it's still
and he
safe
was
because
and he was yelling his ass off, yelling his ass off. And when he pulled me over, yes, he had his weapon drawn already, as if I was this crazy threat. But you damn right. You have to be. That goes into the whole talk. The aspect of having the talk, knowing what to do.
even when you go out, like I've always, like, if a place seemed too dark. Matter of fact, some people invited me out the other day, and as I was driving, it was a little bit too far off the highway. Like, it's certain places I'm not going, especially once it get dark. I'm in Georgia. I don't care what people think about Atlanta and how black Atlanta is, Wakanda forever. But at the end of the day, if you go far enough outside of 285, you're gonna see them Confederate flags flying right over the thing.
Oh
So
yeah.
I
I got
am
Stone
very
Mountain.
mindful.
Yeah,
Oh
and
yeah, like, I'm very
and,
mindful of that.
and you're armed, so there's always an excuse. So,
Listen, listen. I I am always armed. I feel safer. Well, lately I hadn't been. I've been keeping my fire in my truck and trunk, and
TMI. Too much information. Come on, Dr. Casey. Don't do that. Don't fall for that bait. Don't let him get you to put your business out there like that.
no, I am a licensed
It
carry.
don't it don't
Uh,
matter.
yeah.
so but I am always safe.
and,
I always make sure that it is, where
and
I'm.
you got
I
that
don't
and
do
you got that
TikTok
blunt
though.
behind and you got that blunt behind your ear
Nah,
and you and your
first
and your
off,
and your ca- and your car smell like weed. Come
first
on
off,
now.
I plead the fifth for those things. But what I don't do is I'm not speeding. I'm not trying to cross no lanes without a turning signal. I'm not. I am not trying to follow. Matter of fact, the car that I got now, if you get too close to the car in front of you, it will have a little thing that say, you're too close. The cars are right there, like, back up a little bit. So I do. I really am a law abiding citizen. Like I really don't do anything to break the law. Like I am. I've never been to jail. I don't want to go to jail. If orange is the new black, it's real shit. That's how I be. I definitely don't want to go because I would never get out. They would never be able to dang on bully me. But um I am a law abiding citizen, so I really do follow the laws as much as I possibly can. Now I might speed a little bit, but that is not something that I do because I know where I'm at. And I know that if I get stopped here, I don't know who's going to stop me. I know that I don't want to go to jail, and I don't know what those guards will be like in jail. So, what from my experience, with the people that I know in jail, I do things to avoid going to jail. I won't mess with no dope boy. You know why? Because if you get caught and I'm with you, I got this loyalty thing that's bad for me. So I'm not even gonna be with nobody like you because I'm not gonna put myself in a situation where I feel like I gotta stay down for my nigga. I'm not doing that.
But the whole thing though about the officers and the use of force. I mean, this seems to be now just a quick. There's it seemed to be, an officer would be pride. I have never fired my gun. I haven't had to do it. But
Used to be
now,
that way. Used to
yeah,
be that way.
I
it
mean,
used to
people
be that
didn't
way.
used to like being whores either, but now it's a good thing.
But
People that like being naked now,
Yeah,
everybody is nude.
yeah. And
They
Anthony,
like showing
you
their
talking
ass
about
now. It's the
you
thing to
talking
do.
about you talking about Anthony back when officers would actually entrench themselves in the community and be, be
yes,
a
Be a
known
part.
officer that
yeah,
knows everybody,
yeah,
engages with everybody. That's how it's supposed to be. But those are the
yeah,
ones that are quitting.
exactly.
Those are the officers that are quitting the
But I still
force.
think there should be some restraint on this use of force. I mean, as Dr. Casey was saying, a lot of these black people are getting killed. They have been they're law abiding citizens. They don't
Yeah.
have guns. They're getting shot in the back. They're getting shot in the head. They're being held on the ground and executed. I mean, this is where, um, boy, this is where there has to be some humanity in the thing. I mean, they have allowed these officers to just get away with anything. And unions and courts have not said that there's consequences for their behavior. I mean,
Well,
the whole use
I
of force thing is just out of control.
but that's where it comes a point in time to where the people need to be in outrage. It comes a point in time to where it needs to cost something tremendous on the other side for the message to get across. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
it looks like you things are moving in that direction to where as a people we continue to be you know looked upon and viewed upon as being targets from that standpoint. It's fear of the black man, fear of the black people, and they are able to exercise that, like we stated earlier, at will. But yet, we're not doing anything to change the narrative. As long as they know that they can go home
yeah,
to they wife and children, and don't have to give a damn and don't have to be accountable for our well being, and we don't create some of the same scenario, it's going to change. Nothing changes unless you force change. Remember that
See,
power is not going to give in just for the sake of being nice. It's not.
see, Brother Williams. I was incarcerated during the '70s, so you can imagine some of the, right after Attica and that. And this is what we used to say about the prison guards. You go home at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
We have to stay here. We still, whether we're locked up or not, this is our home. And I know it sound, it might sound a little strange to people that have never been there, but for however many years or maybe life, this
Mm-hmm.
is where I have to be. You collect a paycheck. You don't care about what happens. You don't care whether or not, guys are getting raped after the lights go out. You don't care whether or not, we got enough blankets or whatever. You do what the state, the requires you to do. We're not looked upon as humans. We're looked upon as either uh, products because you're paid for to watch us, or we're paid for certain production that we need. But you lose that sense of humanity when you're not treated as a human, because if you have nothing to lose, then you have a total different mindset. And that's why we used to have some of the riots that we had back in the day. uh, you know uh, I don't know how things are now, but I know, people forget that just because you're incarcerated, that does not stop you from being a human being.
That's right. That goes back to what George Jackson, with the Black Panther Party, was emphasizing. Going into getting ready to get on the month of Black August, was emphasizing once he got incarcerated on $70, so quote unquote a $70 robbery, and now you're doing life. Undetermined amount of time in prison. Come on, we're not looked upon as being humans, really. It's still it's even to me lesser than that 3/5 thing. So right now the bottom line is, as African people, really, to me, until we take a stand and demand on all accounts, all levels possible, demand that we are treated as human beings, you're going to keep just having this thing go down, keep having to go down. Remember, a lot of these white guys that are doing these mass shootings are flat out saying that this is as a result of seeing their numbers dwindle. The same thing that they felt about abortion rights. I mean, it's just constantly coming out. I mean, I seen the video, the rap video that dude put up, where he was showing himself on the video. Obviously it was cartoons, but he showed himself mass shooting people. You have these crazy young white radicals that are setting the bar for themselves. And again, he came out of a chat group that was basically mentoring and prepping what young white kids to be in that mode. So I don't think we've saw the last of it yet. We have not saw the last of it. It's not going to change. And Anthony, unfortunately, I don't think changing the laws, the weapon laws, is going to make a difference. One thing I mentioned, and this one thing I do want to put out there just for people to be aware of. When I used to do surveillance on some of these crazy white supremacists and some of the literature that they would study, mind you, they talked about poisoning water supplies. They talked about putting poison in food stores. They talked about mass killings that were beyond weapons, using small arms. So if we think things are bad now, wait until one of them or a few of them or create this the calculated strike that they've been talking about doing. That narrative has been suppressed, and I just want to throw it out there that narratives have been suppressed because the the news media don't want, from that standpoint, don't want to spook people up to the degree of recognizing really what they have been plotting and planning,
Remember
because it's
Timothy
a spook thing.
McVeigh? Remember McVeigh? He
Yeah,
studied the
right,
Chronicles before he
correct.
did that.
Right. And so this whole thing with these small assault rifles, that ain't really nothing. That's nothing, because the ones that are actually planning to do this on a higher level are going to be a little bit older than 18, between 18 and 20. It's going to be a little bit higher up in terms of what they know how to do in terms of mass damage and exposure. So if we think that taking a Bushmaster AR-15 and having a few clips is something, wait till when I'm talking about starts happening,
Yeah,
Well,
because
I
it's
don't want
coming.
to.
one of the things that the Proud Boys are talking about doing in D.C., the D.C.
Right.
water supply.
Explosives. That's right.
Yeah. Um, Mr. Scott, one of the other rulings that the Supreme Court made was that it was okay for the coach to go out after the game and do his prayers on the 50-yard line. Do you think that they'd have made the same ruling if he had went out there with a prayer rug or maybe a Torah or a Quran? I mean, do you think that they'd have made the same decision if he wasn't Christian, quote unquote?
Well, as we've talked about on this show over the years, I mean, the religious points are very, very boy. I mean, where do you start with that? I mean, what's real, what isn't? Here in this town, this last Saturday, matter of fact, during the show we had a gentleman that called himself running for a Hennepin County attorney. He was totally clueless about any cultural things or whatever. But to get and pander to votes, they had an event in downtown Minneapolis at US Bank Stadium. Okay. Now, US Bank Stadium is where the Minnesota Vikings play. It was just built 2 3 years ago. Holds maybe 75, 80,000. The Somalis had a meeting there called the Id. And their Id is a religious event where they come together yearly in prayer, different idioms of their religion, Muslim, Islam. And they must have had 50,000 people in there. 50,000. Would they have done that if African Americans wanted to do something like that in that state? How in the world you get that stadium to use for? I mean, I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or different. I'm just saying if they're going to do that for them, it should be done for others.
But do
And
you have
so the
50?
whole
Do you have 50?
religion.
Do you have 50,000 blacks in Minneapolis that can come together under one roof at one time? Isn't that saying
Well,
something?
I can tell you this.
Isn't that more a statement about the black community?
Well, yeah, that's it. Probably is because the numbers are here to do it. Is the togetherness? Is the organization there? No, no, not close to it. Any of the traditional organizations are pretty much out of pocket up here. I mean, NAACP or the Urban League. I mean, that's those things don't even they don't even nobody paying attention to them anymore. You know, so but I mean that's an example. They were able to on a religious under the guy well I shouldn't say under the guise of being religious, but they were able to take that stadium and use it for their purpose. Now this man you're talking about that went to kneel. I mean, just like Kaepernick. I mean, they use these things. I mean, these things they use these things for a purpose. They use these things. Um, I just don't see the real sincerity in religion like I felt as a kid growing up, and maybe that's because it was as a kid and you believed in Santa, Easter Bunny. And I mean, I of course I believe in religion, and I want to believe that religion is real, but it's manipulated like everything else. Everybody's after this dollar. Everybody's after that. My dad would say the shocks and strains of this money man society can make even the most Puritan of hearts go bad. And so this is another thing that we battle. On the one hand, they tell us they can't fund our after school programs. They can't fund, they don't have the money. But yet and still, when they do wrong, they can pay people off. They can go ahead and get themselves out of it by paying millions of dollars. So don't tell me that you don't have money. You can build stadiums. You can throw out. They got money. That's not a problem. They take money from us all the time. They got plenty of it. I mean, that's my feeling on it.
What's your feeling, Brother Williams? If you had took a prayer rug out there to the middle of the field, you think that would have been all right?
Oh no, hell no, that wouldn't have happened. They weren't gonna let that. I go back to the idea of Christian identity. And again, to me, this falls still under the same thing about the white right, so to speak, taking back their things. And remember, the whole Christian identity movement from a supremacist standpoint is based upon them wanting to reclaim they white God. And so they're part of that movement is nigga, ain't you learned this ain't your God, this ours. Part of that movement even goes into that. They're at a point to where they sick and tired of black folks taking over their things, their country and their religion. And so part of this fight goes into that. So recognize this. Part of this fight, part of this the PTSD that we're seeing within the white community, the young white community, is based upon themselves seeing themselves backed up in a corner and seeing more black people do things or benefit from things that they feel they are entitled to be able to do. Period, point blank. And so you're seeing various elements of the white community rise up. And within the Christian identity, that's the same thing. They want their God back and they tired of niggas still taking that from them too. I hate to tell you, Anthony, but that's what that is. Remember
And it's
this
so
Christian
crazy.
identity. They call it that. Christian identity is the name of that movement. And that implies that it is white and it's about white people.
It's so crazy that you say that they think that we're taking something else that belongs to them when it actually never really belonged to
Correct.
them.
Correct. Correct.
That's the crazy part because and
Yeah.
it's so crazy, Mr. King. We literally talked about every last thing that has been brought up now before they get on. So it's kind of like full circle because literally though, nothing that they think this current generation of white people,
Right.
nothing that they think that's theirs is actually theirs, and the stopping of the critical race theory or the real teaching of like the full history is what limits them to thinking that they have more entitlement than they actually possess. There is literally nothing that they have that they didn't steal from a colorful nation and then deem it as their own, and then like even
But
culture
that's the key.
appropriation
That's
with
the key.
when you think
The
about
spoil
braids, when
the
you think
spoils of
about
war. The spoils of war is when you take and you conquest and you take for your own and make it your own. That is
mhm,
why I say we're on the battlefield, we are at war. When you are at war, then you are entitled to be able to take advantage of
mhm,
your terrain. This is
mhm,
why, like how they've been talking about this in terms of what's going on with some of the Russian soldiers raping the Ukrainian women as if that's something unheard of, and they do that every time when there is a war. That the spoils
mhm,
of war. Spoils of war is part of that is recodifying and re-identifying and rewriting history. So once they've rewritten, because they are the ones that are in control and they view themselves as being in control, then it is theirs. It wasn't originally theirs, but that's irrelevant at this point because if they are the ones in power, as far as they see it, this is ours. We fought for it. We killed you for it. We took it from you. It's ours.
Uh, I want to ask you guys about this. We talked about mass shootings, but on the 23rd of June, the Supreme Court also ruled that the New York statute uh, to open carry violated the 14th Amendment. It says that the law prevents law abiding citizens with ordinary self defense needs from exercising their right to keep and to bear arms. Now, I'm kind of wondering, uh, Brother Williams, what happens when two or three police cars pull up on the scene and there's armed black participants on both sides? We saw what happened to a guy running away.
Yeah. Well, this goes into the their justification for militarizing the police departments because they can't get in. They don't want to be able to be in a position to where they feel like citizens are able to outgun them, and that's where the militarization of the police department comes from. And I can speak on that basically from what I dealt with when I lived in Dallas, Texas, as a member of the New Black Panther Party, when we used to deal with armed marches and armed protests, as well as confronting drug dealers with weapons. Um, we used to have assault rifles when we go out and we confront drug dealers. And again, one of the stories I like to tell people is that there was one time in particular to where when we was confronting a crack house and the police showed up, and here they are see us with our assault rifles telling them that this is a crack house, and some innocent people have been shot at by these drug dealers, and the drug dealers actually called the police on us, and the police called for backup because we had assault rifles. And from that standpoint, next thing you know, you're dealing with a lot of law enforcement that tried to show up. Why? Because we had assault rifles, right? Yet we're trying to police our own community and we're confronting drug dealers. The bottom line in their mentality is they want to justify a police budget that allows them to be able to make sure that they're able to outarm the citizens. So the name of the game at that point is that you don't want citizens to have the ability to be able to outgun the police, and they would try to use any and every case example they can to to justify being a military, to militarize themselves. But let's also keep in mind, part of that problem in that dynamic is the fact that a good percentage of law enforcement are ex-military. And when you are ex-military combat military, infantry, your mentality is when you come out of that war zone and you step into the blue uniform war zone, your community, that community that you're serving, is still enemy combatants. And that's the bigger element I think we're not looking at,
Mhm.
is that they never look at themselves as serving and protecting the citizens. It's serving and protecting the interest of the tax dollars from that standpoint, and controlling that dynamic. When you force police officers to actually live within the communities that they quote unquote serve and protect, I think that helps to resolve some of the problems we're talking about. But obviously, that goes into the whole thing with the police unions and the fight that they do to make sure that they don't have that level of accountability within the police department. So no, they don't want the citizens to be able to be armed because, again, let's go back to California. Hell, it was because the Black Panther Party was showing the community through observation and participation that cops don't have any more rights to defend and arm themselves than you do, and confronted officers for basically attempting to do lawless crimes, that they changed the gun laws right away. They was like, oh no. When you had a situation where we both were armed, and that created that equalization to where now they had to talk to you in a capacity where they recognize that you are a human being. Now when you put it in a position where, guess what, you may not go home and kiss your baby, just like you come out in these streets and expect to be able to do the same thing to me. Once you create that level of equalization, then that's when fear kicks in. Then that's when they really recognize that they are not in control and that the people have the power. So they want to strip the people of ever feeling like they're going to have that power. And then with the white radical racist ones, they know all of the loopholes and know all of the ways to go around it anyway. So it's obviously, it typically applies to us black people, and even some others from that standpoint who don't have an inside track to be able to arm ourselves properly from that standpoint. Because you best believe there are plenty of white people walking around in New York with concealed carry licenses, but you ain't gonna find too many in the black community.
See, well, I kind of am happy that they are creating this law because I want to go to New York and I want to take my gun. And I could not do that prior to
Yeah.
this change. So for me, as somebody that's traveling into the city, I want to feel protected, and I want to feel protected without breaking the law. So instead of having to drive to New York and sneak my weapon in, I can do it very legally now and not have to worry about it. Now, I want to take the trip into positive land, and I'll go into La La Land if need be, but I don't want to um really speak that narrative of they're going to use this as a way to militarize, because I can see where that can happen, and that's the worst case scenario. But the best case scenario is to where um maybe crime decreases because people know that if I got to fire and you got to fire, you can't just you're not running up on people as easily
I like
because
that.
now people.
That's how we lived in Texas, and I look forward to that in California. I hope it work its way down here.
Because at the end of the day, right now, a lot of people are like guinea pigs. They're just waiting to be plucked off in a lot of
Yeah.
places because they're not able to arm themselves. They don't. A lot of people are scared of guns because of the reasons that you're saying. But if you take the inability to stop a person just because of a gun, I think that that is something that will be beneficial long term, because now if you see somebody with a gun, you can't automatically assume that they're doing something wrong.
Right.
Now you have to consider the fact that they are allowed to have that. So you can't just stop a person just based off of having a gun. I mean, unless you know that this person is a criminal, like you've had an interaction with them before, you can't just assume that anymore. And I like that portion of it. But I do know that it is dangerous for black people to have guns. So I mean, there is that looming negative energy that comes with that, because as soon as they see a gun in ordinary circumstances, it gives them a reason to shoot. But in the new circumstances, they have to relearn that just because a person has a gun doesn't mean shoot. And it is either going to be very bad and it's going to be very detrimental, but it can also have the potential to be very positive, because it can, in my opinion, it might be able to save some lives that would not normally be saved because of whether it is the lack of protection or the lack of community. With if everybody has a gun, then one person having a gun doesn't seem like the oddball, and now seems like the oddball to not have a gun versus being a threat just because you have a gun.
See, I think maybe we should make a, a difference here because that works for honest people. But if,
I mean, like
but if that's part of your life, I mean, hey, if you didn't have an armed guard in the bank, evidently you didn't have enough money. So I mean, but you know,
I mean, but we've already established that the people that's creating crime and that is robbing, stealing, killing, drug
yeah,
dealing,
that,
they are not the people that's caring about none of this shit anyways. They don't
Right.
care about
Right.
none of these laws. Because they gonna do what they gonna do regardless. They ain't stopping, one monkey ain't stopped one show not one time.
but Mr. Scott, what do you think about knowing the reputation of your police? They pull up on the scene, and there's armed black men on both sides.
Yeah. Answer like you answered that fly that keep going around. Use that fly energy,
How in the
that
world I
hatred, and
think
answer that question.
well, again, look at Uvalde, okay, Texas, okay. Police was there and they allowed this man to go walk in there and wouldn't stop him. They got to call somebody to get permission. They got to go to. I mean,
Minneapolis police don't seem to have that problem, though, Mr.
no,
Scott.
they still don't. They still don't. You see, so I mean, that's a glaring example.
I mean,
They're
here's a guy.
they
Here's
won't
a
even
guy
be
that
able
was asleep. Here's a guy that was asleep in your town, with a license to carry.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It happened. It happened right here, which I still say, you know, you have a license, you can carry a gun, you have, but if we have it, see, then it's a different thing. It's a different narrative. If they saw this man was asleep, he's laying down and the gun, and then they kill him. I mean, so and nobody's talking about charging them or no, that's not even in the discussion or anything. That's all over with as far as they're concerned. That's just business as usual.
He's still bothering
That,
you. Huh?
that fly is not gonna let up.
Yeah,
And he cannot concentrate with that
it
fly.
took his focus away.
Hey,
There's a rap song, Anthony, called by the Ghetto Boys. I know you don't know the group, but
Oh
they
yeah,
had a
oh
rap.
yeah.
Oh, you
Somewhat
do?
familiar. Somewhat
So then
familiar.
you
Oh
know
yeah.
the song "Niggas and Flies," huh?
Yes.
mhm.
Think of that song right now as you swat that fly.
oh, oh man. Hey, but I know it's we try to have as much fun as possible, but it's very serious subjects.
Mhm.
Um, Mr. Scott, I'm
Yeah.
gonna let you give us your final thoughts tonight, and we hope to see you back next Thursday. I mean, excuse me, next Monday, and I look forward to talking to you to Thursday also.
I still ain't
Yeah.
got no invite to this Thursday shindig.
Well, we talk sports on Thursday,
I know
so
sports. I used to be
so.
a cheerleader.
Oh
Get
Oh
yeah.
my
through
God!
it.
See,
Come on. We can
see,
talk. Let's talk sports.
is see,
Now we've got Rudy
I'm sorry. I
Gobert.
didn't mean James, I didn't mean to open that door.
see, see, there you go. See, hey,
Now
we
you
have
gotta
He
go
to.
fit
that
in that.
bait. He didn't take the
You
rap
gotta go
game
put that
bait.
outfit. You gotta go put that outfit back on, and
Nuh-uh.
then get invited.
Oh, that's the invite criteria.
You said it. You said it.
I just said I
You
used to
used to be a
cheer, so I
cheerleader.
know sports.
See,
I have not owned a cheerleading outfit in over 25 years. Okay.
uh, uh, so go ahead, Mr. Scott.
Well, I guess my just closing thoughts are, this gun violence, this Supreme Court, this Roe versus Wade. I mean, people don't even really know that there is no person named Roe. That this is a whole. This person was just a suit. People are up in arms, and we then don't really look at. It's just another glaring example of we don't really look at the real issues, the real human issues behind these things. We don't look at the value of choice, the value of lives, and that goes across the board. To not fund things that need to be funded, and I've said, I believe they have enough money to do whatever in the hell it is they want to do. There's no shortage of no money. That's not the problem at all. It's the know-how. It's to know what to do with it. It's to know how to work with your communities and to get down and do the groundwork to get these things done, to streamline and improve our education system, to realize that a lot of the jobs that have gone away have created new jobs, and we need to steer people into those areas. We need to give, if our people don't have any hope, it's going to continue to spiral down. And hopefully, maybe next time we can get a little bit more into the rap game. I've done a little bit more research. I've really dug into it. I've really dug into it, and hopefully, we can have somewhat of a discussion on the merits and lack thereof of the rap game.
All
He had
right,
to sneak
so
that punch in. He had to
yeah,
sneak that
Right,
low blow
right,
in.
right.
he had to sneak that in, but I wonder how he's gonna handle Otis Redding when we start talking about sitting by the dock of the bay. But yeah, yeah,
I used to could do the whistling too when I used to play that song. I used to could do the whistle. Well, I haven't been able to whistle that much lately.
hey, I hear you, brother Williams. You wanted to give us your final thoughts for the night?
Yeah, I think that I just really want to put out the narrative that as black people, what we need to do is rise to the occasion versus look at this from the standpoint of more and more frustration and more reasons why we are, outright just self-destructive, so to speak. We
Mhm.
need to recognize that. I say it all the time. We at war. We need to recognize that that we have to be accountable for the direction in which things are going haywire. And the more of us that get involved in this fight, the more of us that get involved in saying, "Hey, enough is enough. I want to take an active role on a day-to-day basis in doing things that's going to improve the condition," the better chances we have at making sustainable, lasting change. Because right now we're stuck in this time loop to where we get caught up in this victimization mode and we stay there. Okay, we see what's happening to us. Let's not look at it through the eyes of continually being the victim. Let's look at it through the eyes of what will it take to come about bringing solutions, and we have to be willing to stand up to create those solutions. And instead of expecting the same ones that kill us, the same ones that marginalize us, to be the ones that's going to all of a sudden have this bliss of Christian identity and come back and save us as a people and recognize that, you know what, we have done you wrong, and just hand over the keys to the house. That ain't gonna happen.
Mhm.
We have to recognize it's up to us. If we want change, we have to be at the helm of that change. That's all I got to say.
Thank you so much, dear brother Williams. Always I look forward to your remarks and your continuing talking to us about the change in philosophy that we need to go through in order to combat. Well, as I said, combat terms of war. Uh, Dr. Casey, take us home.
So, in order to take us home, we have to address the fact that Roe versus Wade was actually, it was not a real person. Well, it was a real person. There was a lady that told a false story about being raped by a black man. And in this false story, in which she told about being raped by a black man in order to get the excuse to have an abortion, actually, she never actually had the abortion.
Nope.
But the black man that was accused, I don't know, I never got the part of the story about what happened to him because I was just distracted that the whole law was based on the false accusation of a black man. And all these people are fighting for this law based on the false accusation of a black man raping a woman. I mean, people that got killed for just whistling it. Rest in peace, Emmett Till. And we need to talk about them surrounding her house and
Yeah.
going for her because that is something. But this law that people are fighting for to kill babies, to kill unborn, responsible adult decision created children, they are fighting to keep a law in place that was generated simply because a white lady didn't want to have a baby and accused a black man. And I'm just lost because black people can't know that this is the reason why they is huffing and puffing and trying to keep this law intact. Because based on that, we should be happy that this was thrown out because it was done up under false pretenses and done in a racist way. This wasn't.
Um,
This was about not
Dr.
having a
Casey,
1%. Mhm.
let me read something to you because I was planning on having a program, Roe versus Wade versus Planned Parenthood, because I think a lot of people get them mixed up. But
Yeah.
just to go along with what you were saying, to give credence to it, according to a sworn statement made in 2003, McCovery, who has a synonym Wade, asked uh, what she needed to do to be a part of this Weddington and Coffee's lawsuit. And she recounted being told, "You're white, you're young, you're pregnant, and you wanted an abortion. Because of her whiteness and her lower social class, they were all critical factors in her attorney's choice to have her as their plaintiff. Because of her whiteness and her lower class. So
Sounds about like how they set up Rosa Parks to be the fall person for the
and
but
like you said, she ended up having the baby. The baby ended up being adopted.
Yeah,
So
it
you
was
know,
resolved. It was resolved with the adoption.
yeah.
Really was no
So
case. Should have
uh,
been thrown out.
uh,
The poor
but
federal
uh,
that's
didn't
but
even go to the trial. She didn't even go to. She didn't pay no attention to it. She didn't go to none of the hearing. Nothing.
that's kind of my point in what I was saying. Like, it's about learning what we don't realize that we don't know. Because a lot of times we're fighting for things and we don't even realize the shit was stacked up against us when they did it.
Yeah.
And now we fighting for some stuff that it really was never done for. It was done as an attack against us. If you think or read or look into Planned Parenthood, they didn't start that because they was trying to preserve. They started that because they did not want more black babies.
she
But
was a
black
guest speaker for the Klan. Come on.
Yeah.
listen, black people don't even realize they don't realize the truth because it's so muddy with lies and it's this is not everything is not black and white. This is about fact versus fiction. This is about truth versus lies and a colorful or a really a truth that lacks color, a story that lacks the reality. And what we have to do, this is my closing remark. So what we have to do is seek knowledge. Learn
Yes.
something, read something, stop. And I am a person, I really do not like to look at the news, but even without looking at the news, when I see stuff, I try to go do a little bit of research on my own just so that I can have maybe just an ounce of more information than what the headlines speak, because the headlines ain't gonna never be what you really need to listen to. The headlines is to get you charged up, to get you upset, and to get you on fire based on whatever narrative they want you to follow. Whether they want you to be upset, whether they want you to be forgiving. When police officers do something, they want you. Oh, he was just upholding the law, doing his job. But and it's so funny because I was reading something and somebody was talking about how the Tory Lanez and Megan Stallion situation, and they just feel like people should just let Tory just okay, if he even if he did it, he needs the support and the understanding and people surrounding him so that he can learn why he should not have did it, why he should have a different approach. We don't need to leave people by the wayside because they on the wayside. We need to them fix their ass up. Teach them something, learn them something. The reason why a lot of people are the way that they are, whether they black or whether they white, is because they've been put in a place where they've had to learn how to survive on their own, and their only response is survival. And we
Yep.
have to get out of survival and we have to get into living life and understanding who we are. Because as long as we're trying to survive, we'll never know the potential of who we could really be as a people, as individuals, just to have peace. So seek peace through knowledge and understanding. The more you know, the more you grow, the less things that people can pull on you because they can't tell you nothing if you're going and learning it for yourself. Stop falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Lack of knowledge. It's not just lack of knowledge, it's the comprehension, it's the being able to apply, it's the being able to know within your soul that whatever it is that you believe it because that's what it really is, not because somebody told you to believe it. Self knowledge is the best knowledge because once you learn yourself, then you start the switch click on and you be like, wait a minute now. I got to look at all things different. So I charge you, challenge you to look at things differently, not because somebody is telling you. If I tell you something, if Mr. Williams tells you something, if Mr. King tells you, Mr. Scott, Miss Sims, anybody on here tell you something. Look it up. We are not talking just to talk. It's not a whole bunch of conspiracy theories. Even what we said about COVID. Shit, I just seen something today where a person was telling them that over 40, 50, 60, 70,000 deaths have come from COVID and it should be pulled off the shelf right now. It should be a global recall. But they're not gonna tell you that because they have pushed this narrative so much that whatever narrative they get behind, they gotta get behind it till they can't stand behind it no more. And it's not likely that they're gonna tell you when they can't. So learn something on your own so that you can be knowledgeable, so that you can be free. Because the only freedom is truth.
And that's
Hey,
what I'm doing about the rap game. I'm doing my own. I'm doing my own research. I'm doing my own digging in, diving in.
Well, make sure you're doing that research by reading something from black authors that wrote about the hip hop. Not the ones that destroy the CDs and get on and talk bad and say that black folks stole their music. Okay,
Right.
Oh
uh,
yeah, I will definitely take
start
your
with
advice on that.
Professor Griff. Start with Professor
Definitely,
Griff. When you
as I
do
as
that,
I as I watch the commercials now, and I see the whites doing the scratching, and now they're doing it, and they're doing the break dancing, and we see the copy. We see that copying, watering it down, throwing it back at you, stuff that we've already done. And when they do it, because they've suppressed us seeing it on a wide basis, so when they do it, the masses of them think that it's new. They think it's something they've done. So
you ever got called Vanilla Ice? I mean, you just you know. But anyway, uh, with that, y'all have a good, a good week, and I'll talk to you again next Monday.
all
Have a
right.
great night,
uh,
Love and
everyone.
light to all.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
you
Uh,
folks take care. Yeah.
yeah. Come on, Dr. Casey, get your plug in.
Oh, speaking of Freedom TV, I got a 641,000 views right now. Tap in. I talk about R. Kelly and how he the victim. If you've seen it recently, there is a new document showing that one of the girl's parents was on the phone in testimony, coaching her daughter to warm up to him to get. He is a victim. He is a monster, but he is also a victim. I would never want to be alone with R. Kelly, but I have a whole lot to say on Speaking of Freedom TV. Tap in, pick up a book, do your thing.
Yeah.
Peace, love, and light to all.
Anything for on the Panthers agenda this week, Mr. Williams?
I would just like people to continue to go to our channel, Panther 48, and absorb some of the political education that we post up on there. I do want to say this: Dr. Willie Morrow's homecoming is going to be celebrated. And for those of y'all that don't know who he was, he lived in San Diego, was an African inventor and pioneer of the what was it, the African carol, the basically where they stole the terminology Jerry Curl from. He is the actual black man that invented the California curl, not this Jerry Curl thing. And so he made his transition, and so I just do want to make it known to the community that we did lose one of our greats, and you know, learn your history. That's all I got to say.
All
All
right.
right. Well, have a great night, everyone. Talk to you next week.
Yeah.
Come on, I'll see you Thursday, Mr. Scott.